All right, Wash, man. So I got to ask you this. 1970, you get the call. You're in pretty much in the major leagues at that point. You know, you go through the system, obviously, but how was that moment for you? And now realizing that years later, you're still a heavy impact in baseball because, you know, I believe baseball is the one sport that we respect the game and we respect the guys that become before us, right? And I mean, I'm pretty sure you as a player, I don't know if you thought you were going to be around for this long, even as a coach, but did you think that you were going to be around baseball this long?
Yeah, I wanted to be a coach. That's something I wanted to be, you know, and when I was playing the game, I was a coach. Because a lot of the guys, when I was playing, came to me when they had tough questions that they needed to have answered. And I was a baseball rat, you know, and as far as my call-up goes, it was sweet. It was a little bitter compared to what these kids go through today when they get called up. Their family is here. I couldn't afford to get my family here. So when I got the call that I was coming to LA from Albuquerque, New Mexico, it was an off day. And I came back to my apartment, there was a note on the door, got to call LA. And that's when they told me that I was being called up. Of course, I got on the phone, I called my wife, I called my families, called everybody, but I couldn't get them there. So that part was bitter. But I walk into the hotel that we were staying in, and who I walk into, he's playing the Pittsburgh Pirates, Dave Parker, Willie Stargell. Those are the type of, Manny Sanguillen, those are the type of guys that I ran into in the hotel right away.
I love that because I know the last time we talked, you talk about Hank Aaron, you talked about all these players that you either faced or even just guys that you were watching as you were coming in. Just to know that you have been able to see all these greats and even some of the younger guys that came in this last generation, what stands out as far as like the level of talent? Because I feel like, man, like the game is just, it's always been talented, but it seems like the game is sort of getting younger. Do you think the game is getting younger as far as the players go?
The game is definitely getting younger as far as the players go. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of inexperience out there on the big league field today. And when I say inexperience, I'm just talking about knowledge of how the game is supposed to play and all that type of stuff. In our day, you couldn't get to the big leagues unless they felt like you could play. Today, it's the talent that gets you to the big leagues. It's hard to stay now. It's even tougher to stay today than it was in the past. There's so many young kids that I read a lot about, got to the big leagues, and it was a flash in the pan. And they were a flash in the pan because they didn't get enough time in the minor leagues to learn how to sustain, to learn how to deal with adversity totally. When adversity set in, panic set in. I've never seen so many anxiety attacks as you see right now in the game. You know, I never had anxiety because the one thing that sustained me and my generation was belief in our ability to do what we had to do to sustain. See that? Sustain, belief. They work together. And that's what's missing today. Just a little bit of wisdom. The talent is there. These kids, man, they got plenty of talent. They got a ton of talent. They got more talent than I've ever seen. But, you know, being able to sustain has been the issue more than anything else.
You know, being a baseball lifer, for you, I think that more importantly, you're an ambassador to the game. And what I mean by that is this. You know, I believe it was the All-Star weekend, I want to say last year or the year before. You're out there doing the fungo drill, your famous drills with like several players that were not Atlanta Braves players. And I think that shows appreciation to the game, that they respect you. When you getting guys like that, the stars that are doing that, how does that make you feel, man? Because, I mean, I think that's huge.
That's what I do. That's what I think any coach does. I was a coach at an All-Star game. And if a player asks me as a coach at an All-Star game to work with him, what am I supposed to do? Say no, because you're not in my organization? That's the one time I was a coach in an All-Star game. So any player right there, I'm going to coach up. And that's how I ended up coaching him up at first base, because he asked me. And I wasn't going to turn him down, and I certainly was going to give him my all. I wasn't going to shortchange him. I can't give him what I got in 25, 30 minutes. if you think about it.
That's a lifetime.
You know what I mean? Because you're right. What I got through a lifetime. But I gave him what I could give him in the amount of time that we have and hope that it helped him, which is I was there as a coach in All-Star game.
See, it seems like to me, you had your eye on the prize. Obviously, you want to be the best player that you could be, but you had this thing about wanting to be a manager. And I feel like that's a thing in baseball that a lot of people don't want to take ownership on even at a younger age. Like, hey, like you were talented enough to where you were in the major leagues, but a lot of players may not be talented, but they understand the game. Why is it that people don't sort of like get the younger people to want to just learn some of the managerial things, you think?
I think everybody is different, but for me, it's taking care of details. As a 16, 17-year-old, first time in baseball, I was taught details. I went to the Kansas City Royals Baseball Academy. We learned baseball on a chalkboard, and then we went from the chalkboard to the field. We took care of details, and details have always been a part of Ron Washington's teaching, mentoring, whatever it is. And that's what's missing, I think, when you talk about these young coaches. They're not taking care of detail. But I think in time they will learn that. But I knew that at 16 years old.
Wow. So speaking of like managerial things, I got to ask you this. If you did a Mount Rushmore of 4 managers, Major League Baseball, you can add the Negro Leagues if you want to in that as well. But if you did 4, who would the 4 managers you put on the mountaintop in your opinion?
Cito Gaston, Dusty Baker, Tony La Russa, and I wasn't really around during Whitey Herzog and all of those guys' days, but Sparky Anderson would be one of them for me because I was around with Sparky Anderson.
That's tough. That's tough.
I'll go Cito Gaston and Dusty Baker. Cito won 2 World Series.
Yeah, Toronto.
Yeah, and when Toronto came to town, your hands were full. Dusty Baker finally got his World Series, but everywhere Dusty went, whether the team was in shambles or in dust and ashes, he rose. Sparky Anderson, he's made a difference in so many baseball players' lives. I can go on and on. I had Tommy Lasorda. I mean, he's made so much difference in so many players' lives. Tony La Russa made a difference in so many players' lives. As I said, what's his name over in St. Louis?
La Russa.
No, before La Russa. But that had the St. Louis Cardinals, one of the older guys.
Former manager, not Whitey, but I'm on a brain fart right now.
I'm on a brain fart too. When you asked that question, I had a bunch of them in my head.
You named the 4. I just think it's funny because the thing is like you described all these guys, and you have all their characteristics. I mean, you said like Dusty. You said he brought a team from the bottom. I mean, when you came to the Rangers were a team they weren't contending. And you came here and they became contenders. You talked about, Cito, like you knew when it came time to play, you had to play them. Well, I think a lot of people agree during your run with the Rangers when it was, especially at their best, you knew what time it was, the base stealing and everything. And you talked about, just like the other managers, how, you said, hey, man, it was the details, different things. It seems like you inherited all those things. That's a good Mount Rushmore, I think, honestly. Like
that's how you grow, because everything that you get instilled in you got from somebody else. Some of it you went through trial and error, but the majority of them, it was someone else that instilled it in you. And like I said, a lot might come out of my mouth that makes a ton of sense, but it was someone that put it in me, and I'm just speaking what they told me.
I like that. So 2 more questions. So this is going to be fun here. So I'm going to name 4 players, either teammates or players that you either have somewhere in your baseball life that you have dealt with them. And I want you to just briefly describe them and how impactful they were towards you. Eric Chavez.
Eric Chavez arrived on the scene, and I had a list about that long about the things he couldn't do. So rather than listen to what was on that list, I went down on the bench and I talked to Eric Chavez and asked him, what's your issue? He said, Wash, I catch the ball, all I do is constantly throw it away. Well, being the baseball guru, defensive guy that I am, I just told Eric, we got to work on your footwork. 6 gold gloves later. That's all I ever done with Eric Chavez, is showed him how to use his feet. The rest is him. Once we corrected the feet, everything else corrected itself. And if Eric Chavez don't hurt his back, Eric Chavez might surpass Brooks Robinson with get-and-go gloves.
I like that. Michael Young.
Michael Young. My time here in Texas it was as good as it was because of Michael Young. I needed someone that believed in what I was trying to do. I had a vision, and it was different than any vision they ever had around here in Texas. But I needed someone that was inside the clubhouse to help me out with my vision. And I went to Michael Young, and I told him, I know how to win. I just need somebody here to help me to prove to these guys, because I was a novice, man. You know what I'm saying? And I was a very positive guy, and I believed that we could win, and everybody thought that was wind coming out of my mouth, but what that was coming out of my mouth was belief. Belief. And I got Michael Young to believe, and when I got Michael Young to believe, everybody else got in line.
All right, I believe you guys were teammates, but you also mentioned him as a manager, Dusty Baker.
Yes, in '77 when I got called up to the big leagues, Dusty Baker was one of the outfielders. And that year, they had 3 of them that hit over 30 bombs. And Dusty Baker took care of me. He bought my first suit. He bought me my first pair of animal shoes, which was alligators.
I like that.
At this big shoe shop in Atlanta. I can't think of the name of it right now because it was so far back. But it was a big shoe shop in Atlanta. And Dusty took care of me. Dusty made certain that I ate good.
Okay.
You know, he would say, meet me in the lobby at this time. We go eat. He just took care of me, man. He made sure I was aware of things that was going on the baseball field. Both he, Reggie Jackson, and Davey Lopes. Davey Lopes and Reggie Jackson is 2 of the hardest guys. Well, not Reggie Jackson, Reggie Smith. 2 of the hardest guys you ever want to run into. But myself, Rafael Landistor, and Jeff Leonard, we won all 3 of them hearts.
I love that. I'm pretty sure you had to listen to Jimi Hendrix with him, right? A few times?
I have.
Okay, because I know he was a Jimi Hendrix guy, so he still is, actually. So, all right, and the last player, you just mentioned him, Mr. October, Reggie Jackson.
Reggie Jackson. I remember the first time I met Reggie, we was in Anaheim, and we were stretching, and Reggie walked into our stretch looking for right-handed pitchers. That's how bold Reggie was. And no, he was looking for left-handed pitchers. Because when he asked one pitcher, what arm do you throw with? He say right. He say, you won't be facing me. Where's the lefty? Intimidation. That was Reggie.
Wow.
But he had a big heart. On the outside, yeah, he was intimidating. That was his aura.
Mm-hmm.
But if you got to know him personally, huge heart.
Wow. Okay, man. Wow. Last question. So, the other day I was actually playing a video game, right? And I'm playing MLB The Show, and I happen to look over at third base. I see that number on the back of the jersey. I recognize it was Ron Washington on the video game. I don't know if you know this, but
I don't know that.
You're actually on a video game. You're on MLB The Show. Okay. How does that feel, just like in your lifetime, to realize that you're on a video game?
There's so much that's been happening in my life as I gotten older. I feel blessed. I feel blessed, number one, to be around all these young kids that's accepting my tutoring. I feel blessed. You look back on days when things were tough and you never thought that you would get over them. And now you can look back and really appreciate the fact that you weathered the storm and you just try to pass that type of stuff on. But as far as you telling me I'm on a video game, didn't know that. Didn't know that.
Well, yeah, man. I guess that's the curtain call there. So,
yeah.
So Ron, congratulations on everything. You've been a big part of my baseball life, and pretty much anybody that's talked to you. And go get that second ring, man, because I think this 2023 team has potential to do some great things, man.
I think what we need to do, we want that ring, but that's down the line. We need to take care of Texas tonight.
Look at last night, maybe the same thing. Appreciate your time, Watch, man. Thank you, brother.